Good morning. In this session, let's talk about activity-based costing. So this is a costing method that is designed to provide managers with cost information for strategic and other decisions that potentially affect capacity. ABC is ordinarily used as a supplement to rather than as a replacement for a company's usual costing system. So for companies who employ ABC costing in their system, normally meron silang dalawang costing system. Isa as their official costing system that is used for preparing external financial reports kasi hindi pwede yung ABC doon, and the activity-based costing system that is used for your internal decisions making and for your managerial activities. For the ABC topic, we have three learning objectives. What are they? First, we should be able to differentiate ABC from your traditional costing. Second, we should be able to discuss the steps in the application of ABC. And lastly, we should be able to identify the advantages and limitations of the ABC costing system. Let us begin with our first learning objective, that is to differentiate ABC from traditional costing. ABC differs from traditional cost accounting in three ways. First, non-manufacturing as well as manufacturing costs may be assigned to products, pero only on a cause and effect basis. Now, if you can recall, in traditional absorption costing, manufacturing costs are assigned to products, pero yung non-manufacturing costs are not assigned to products. Sa ABC naman, we recognize that many non-manufacturing costs relate to selling, distributing, and servicing specific products. Kaya yan yung reason why ABC includes manufacturing and non-manufacturing costs when calculating the entire cost of a product or a service rather than just its manufacturing or service cost. Now, there are two types of non-manufacturing costs that ABC systems assign to products. First, ABC systems trace all direct non-manufacturing costs to products. Ano example nitong mga direct non-manufacturing costs to products? You have your commission paid to salesperson to sell that particular product. So, direct siya because yung cost na yon nabubuhay because of that particular product. Pero hindi siya manufacturing cost, ano siya, non-manufacturing cost. So, paano mo malaman na direct, nabubuhay yung particular cost na yon because of the existence of that product. So, yun nga, example is, commission paid to salespersons. Ano pa? Shipping cost, shipping that particular product. And another example is your warranty repair. If meron kayong warranty na binigay for the products that you sell. So, yung warranty repair cost ng product is part ng kanyang direct non-manufacturing cost. Second, ABC systems allocate indirect non-manufacturing costs to product, pero whenever lang the products have presumably cost the costs to be incurred. So, hindi lang direct non-manufacturing cost ang ina-assign natin sa product, but as well as indirect non-manufacturing cost. Pero, dapat nandyan yung assumption na yung product ang nag-cost ng cost na yon to be incurred. So, let's repeat the first difference ng traditional cost accounting from your ABC costing system is that, ano daw yun? Sa traditional, we only assign manufacturing cost, pero sa ABC, we assign both manufacturing costs and non-manufacturing costs. Another difference is that ABC does not assign all manufacturing costs to products. So, nakalagay dyan, no, may arrow. Anong sabi natin? Sa traditional costing, lahat ng manufacturing costs are part of your product cost. Pero sa ABC, ano lang sinabi? Most. Pero hindi lahat. So, ano yung most? Of course, direct material, direct labor, part talaga yon definitely ng product cost. Ano ang hindi lahat charge as product cost under ABC product costing? Hindi lahat ng manufacturing overhead. So, ulitin ko, anong sabi dito? Most but not all. Simulan natin doon sa most. Sino yung most? Definitely, part ng product cost ninyo, regardless whether gagamitin mo yung traditional or yung ABC, for sure, part ng product cost ang direct material at saka yung direct labor. Ano ang hindi? Yung manufacturing overhead ninyo. So, yung manufacturing overhead, under ABC costing, hindi lahat ng manufacturing overhead matcha-charge as product cost. Pero, if you are using the traditional product costing, lahat ng manufacturing overhead is part of your product cost. So, ma'am, anong mga manufacturing overhead ang hindi mai-charge as product cost? Yung tinatawag nilang organization sustaining costs and yung inyong unused capacity or yung inyong tinatawag na idle capacity cost. So, if yun yung nature ng inyong manufacturing overhead, either ano sila, organization sustaining costs or unused capacity, under ABC product costing, hindi sila nire-recognize as part of the product cost. So, ma'am, anong example ng organization sustaining cost? Example dyan, yung sweldo ng guardian ninyo. Kasi yung ginaguard naman ng guardian ninyo sa planta, hindi lang yung isang product na yon. Ano pa? Yung supplies na ginagamit sa offices ng planta, hindi rin part yun ng inyong product cost if you are using ABC product costing. So, let's repeat ha. Another difference nila is that ABC does not assign all manufacturing cost to products. Ano lang yung most? Direct material, direct labor, walang problema whether traditional yan or ABC, yung dalawang yun sure talaga product cost. Ano ang hindi sure as product cost when we talk about ABC product costing? Yung ating tinatawag na manufacturing overhead. Sino sa manufacturing overhead? Yung mga organization, sustaining cost, at saka yung inyong unused capacity cost. Now, for non-manufacturing cost naman, hindi rin lahat. Based dun sa previous slide na pinag-usapan natin, only those direct non-manufacturing cost as well as indirect non-manufacturing cost basta yung product, yung reason or yung cost bakit nabuhay yung cost na yon. So by now, I am sure you have realized na yung main difference talaga nitong traditional product costing at saka ABC product costing base dun sa dalawang slides na napag-usapan natin is that in your traditional product costing, lahat ng manufacturing cost, charge natin as product cost. Pero when we talk about ABC naman, walang tawag nito, walang identification whether that is a manufacturing or a non-manufacturing cost. What is important is that if yung cost ba na yun is direct to that product, if the answer is yes, then that is definitely a product cost under ABC product costing. Yung pangatlong difference is with regards to the number of your cost pools. hindi lang tayo gumagamit ng plant-wide overhead rate or if you want to make it medyo complicated, gumagamit kayo ng departmental overhead rate instead of just using one, which is nga yung plant-wide overhead rate. So, yan yung alam natin or yan yung ginagamit natin na overhead rate dun sa cost accounting na subject natin last semester. So, under sa cost accounting, di ba yung ginamit ninyo, if you can recall, either plant overhead rate or departmental overhead rate. Pero this time, when we are using ABC or activity-based costing, mas marami yung number of cost pools natin. So, numerous overhead cost pools are used, each of which is allocated to products and other cost objects using its own unique measure of activity. So, hindi lang tayo maglilimit to labor, direct labor hours or machine hours. There will be other cost driver na mamimit natin. Depende kung ano yung mas magandang tawag nito, driver to measure that particular cost object. So, mas ma-appreciate nyo itong third difference when we go to example later on. How are costs treated under activity-based costing? So, before we answer that, definition of terms muna tayo. So, activity, that is an event that causes the consumption of overhead resources. Pag sinabi namang activity cost pool, this refer to the cost bucket in which costs related to a single activity measure are accumulated. Activity measure is an allocation base and an activity-based costing system. We commonly know this as your cost driver. Now, in terms of activity measures, there are two common types of activity measures. These are transaction driver and duration driver. Transaction drivers are simple counts of the number of times an activity occurs. Example nito, number of bills sent out to your customers. Duration drivers naman measure the amount of time required to perform an activity, such as the time spent preparing individual bills for customers. Now, in general, duration drivers are more accurate measures of resource consumption than transaction drivers, pero they take more effort to record. So, for that reason, transaction drivers are often used in practice. Your traditional cost systems usually rely on volume measures such as direct labor hours and/or machine hours to allocate all overhead costs to products, while your ABC defines 5 levels of activity that largely do not relate to the volume of units produced. The 5 levels of activity under ABC are as follows. You have your unit level activity, batch level activity, your product level activity, your customer level activity, and your organization sustaining activity. Ano itong unit level activity? Ito yung mga activities performed each time a unit is produced. Batch level naman are performed each time a batch is handled or processed, regardless of how many units are in the batch. Product level activities naman relate to specific products and typically must be carried out regardless of how many batches are run or units of product are produced or sold. Customer level activities relate to specific customers and are not tied to any specific product. And lastly, organization sustaining activities are carried out regardless of which customers are served, which products are produced, how many batches are run, or how many units are made. In designing and in the implementation of your activity-based costing system, 3 characteristics must be present. First, yung top managers must strongly support the ABC implementation because their leadership is instrumental in properly motivating all employees to embrace the need to change. Pangalawa, top managers should ensure that ABC data is linked to how people are evaluated and rewarded. Kasi if employees continue to be evaluated and rewarded using the traditional or yung non-ABC cost data, they will quickly get the message that ABC is not important and they will abandon it. And lastly, a cross-functional team should be created to design and implement the ABC system. The team should include representatives from each area that will use the ABC data, such as the marketing, production, engineering, and accounting departments. Itong cross-functioning Itong cross-functional employees ninyo, they possess intimate knowledge of many parts of an organization's operations that is necessary for designing an effective ABC system. Furthermore, tapping the knowledge of cross-functional managers lessens their resistance to ABC because they feel included in the implementation process. For our second learning objective, let's discuss the steps in the application of ABC. To illustrate the second learning objective, let's take a look at the story of classic brass. So, please go over the story for in this particular slide, pati dun sa next na slide. So, may continuation tayo sa next slide. So, ito yung continuation ng previous slide. So, please read lang muna the story and go over the given nila na financial statement. Then, after going over itong tatlong slides na to, discuss natin yung ating learning objective number 2. In the application of the ABC system, there are 5 steps to be followed. The first step is to define activities, activity cost pools, and activity measures. So we have here yung continuation ng story ng Classic Brass. So the ABC team, in consultation with their top managers, selected the following activity cost pools and activity measures. So for activity cost pool, you have customer orders, tapos yung corresponding activity measure niya or activity driver is the number of customer orders. For product design, the measure is number of product designs. For order size naman, the activity measure is the machine hours. Now, for customer relations, your measure is number of active customers. What about the other? The other cost pool will be assigned all overhead costs that are not associated with customer orders, product design, the size of the orders, or customer relations. This cost mainly consists of organization sustaining costs and the costs of unused idle capacity. Itong cost na to will not be assigned to products because they represent resources that are not consumed by products. In this slide, we have further explanation on what cost will be attributed to a particular cost pool at saka yung kanilang description, further description ng kanilang activity measure. So, paki-go over na lang. Your second step is to assign overhead costs to activity cost pools. So, you have here Exhibit 7-4 shows the annual overhead costs, both manufacturing and non-manufacturing, that Classic Brass intends to assign to its activity cost pools. So, you have production department, magkano yung total niya? 1 million. Your general and administrative department, a total of 510. And then the marketing department, a total of 300,000. Now, if you compare Exhibit 7-4 to your Exhibit 7-2, you will notice that 3 costs included in your Exhibit 7-2 were not included dito sa 7-4. Ano yung tatlong cost na yon? Si direct materials, direct labor, and shipping expenses. They are excluded because sila kasi yung expenses that you can accurately trace directly to your product. So, kaya si DM, si DL, at saka si shipping expenses were excluded from 7-4. Wala nang need to incorporate sila in the activity-based allocations of indirect costs. Classic Brass activity-based costing system will divide the 9 types of overhead costs. So, ito sila yung 9. Ayan. From indirect factory wages down to your selling expenses. Among its 5, so i-divide mo yung 9, among its 5 aforementioned activity cost pools. So, ano yung 5? Customer care hanggang dun sa other. So, you distribute them via an allocation process called your first stage allocation. The first stage allocation in an ABC system is the process of assigning functionally organized overhead costs derived from a company's ledger to the activity cost pools. First stage allocations are usually based on the results of interviews with employees who have first-hand knowledge of the activities. So for example, kung balikan natin yung previous slide, 7 if balikan natin yung slide dun sa 7-4, Classic Brass needs to allocate 500,000 of indirect factory wages to its 5 activity cost pools. So these allocations will be more accurate if the employees who are classified as indirect factory workers, sino sila? You have your supervisors, you have your engineers, and quality inspectors, among others, are asked to estimate what percentage of their time is spent dealing with customer orders, with product design, with processing units of product, and with customer relations. These interviews are conducted with considerable care. Those who are interviewed must thoroughly understand what the activities encompass and what is expected of them in the interview. So, say for example, ang result ng interview ng mga indirect factory people natin, ang sagot nila are as follows: 25% of their time devoted to customer orders, 40% ng time nila to product design, 20% to order size, customer relations 10%, tapos may others, okay, na hindi customer relations, hindi customer orders, hindi product design, hindi order size. So, ilang percent yon? 5. You just have to make sure that your total, of course, the total time must be 100%. So, yung time nila na 100%, we distributed that to your 5 activity cost pool. So, yun nga, for indirect factory wages, we determined based on the result of your interview na 25, yung customer orders, 40% product design, and so on. Next is another example. Here, you have your factory equipment depreciation. Pwede mong interviewin dyan yung inyong tawag nito. You can interview your pwede nating i-interview yung ating plant manager. So you can ask him or her key questions such as, what percentage of the available machine capacity is consumed by each activity? Yun nga, such as the number of customer orders or the number of units processed. And then iti-take note lang natin. Again, same thing with your indirect factory wages. The total time must be 100%. Now, if you notice here, itong factory building lease, ayan, si factory building lease, walang allocation sa kanya dun sa 4 na activity cost pools. The entire 100% nilagay siya sa other. Ano yung reason behind this one? The reason is that the cost of this production facility is treated as an organization sustaining cost because there is no way to avoid even a portion of this cost. So, ma'am, what do you mean hindi maa-avoid? Even if magtatanggal ka ng products or magtatanggal ka ng customer, that particular cost will still be present. So, hindi siya supportive lang of a particular order of a particular customer or of a particular product. That's why saan siya nilagay sa others as part of your organization sustaining cost. So, the rest, okay, nilagay na lang natin, may 15, 5, 10, 30, 40 for administrative wages and salaries, assuming yun yung result after interviewing those people behind administrative wages and salaries. So, yun yung first stage allocation natin. So, ano gagawin sa first stage allocation? After you determine kung ano yung inyong overhead costs, you interview the key people so that you can approximately divide the overhead cost to your different activity cost pools. So here we have the completed table for your first stage allocation. So paano ito na buo? All you have to do is just simply distribute yung cost na nasa 7-4 and then multiply nyo paano i-distribute yon using dun sa result ng interview natin sa 7-5. So, for example, diba, if you take a look at 7-4 na exhibit, kung balikan ninyo, yung indirect factory wages ninyo amounted to 500,000 in total. And then, based dun sa interview natin with our employees, customer orders consume 25% of the resources. So, under customer orders, we charge 125,000 of indirect factory wages. So, the other entries in the table are computed in the similar fashion. The third step in the ABC application is the calculation of your activity rates. So, paano gawin yan? Diba, we have determined that we have how many activity cost pools. We have 5 customer orders down to others. And then, based on the result of 7-6 na exhibit, we have completed the first stage allocation, and based dun sa result ng first stage allocation, we determined that your customer orders, yung total cost niya amounted to 320, product design amounted to 252, and so on. We have determined also in the earlier slides that for customer orders, your activity measure is the number of orders. And then for product design, it will be the number of designs. And then for order size, the number of machine hours. And then for customer relations, the number of customers. So, assuming that based on the discussion ng ABC team, they have determined that in terms of customer orders, the number of orders will be 1,000. For designs, there will be 400. For machine hours, there will be 20,000 machine hours. And they will be serving 250 customers. So your activity rate will be 320 per order. Ito yung ating activity rate for customer orders, 630 for design naman for your product design, and then $19 per machine hours and 1,470 per customer. So, hindi lang iisa yung ating activity cost pools. We have 5. And then, magkaiba yung basis ng pag-allocate ng cost nila. Because if you notice, magkaiba nga yung inyong activity measures. The fourth step in the implementation of activity-based costing is what we call your second stage allocation. In the second stage allocation, activity rates that we have computed in step number 3 are used to apply overhead costs to products and customers. First, we will illustrate how to assign costs to products, followed by an example of how to assign costs to customers. So, kindly go over muna yung additional information na binigay sa atin from Classic Brass. So, you have additional information for products ng standard stanchions as well as additional information for your custom compass housings. Now, let us assign your overhead cost to your products. Now, if you will recall, okay, if you will recall, we have 5 activity cost pools, 'di ba? 5 'yon. Pero how come in assigning your overhead cost to your products, we only identified 3? Now, ano yung hindi sinama dito? One is customer relations, and the other one is yung others. First, I will discuss bakit hindi kasama dito sa ating Exhibit 7-9 yung others. The reason for that, it's because if you will try to recall, yung others are mga organizational support sustaining activities. So, hindi yun attributable to a particular product. So, hindi natin isasama dito sa Exhibit 7-9 yung others. Second is yung activity cost pool na wala dito is yung tinatawag nating customer relations. Na if you look at the name of your activity cost pool, di ba mas appropriate yan if you charge that particular overhead to your customers. So, we are left with 3 activity cost pools attributable to your product. So, ano yun? Customer orders, product design, as well as order size. Now, if you will take a look itong letter A na column, ano itong letter A? Activity rate. Saan natin kinuha yan? Yan yung result ng ating step number 3. And then for letter B, ito yung additional information given sa atin from the previous slide. Now, in the computation of your overhead cost that you will charge to your product, all you have to do is just simply multiply what you have computed in step number 3 with the additional information that we have gotten for that particular product. So, it is as simple as multiplying column A with your column B. So let's have customer orders as an example. We have determined in step number 3 na yung ating activity rate is 320 per order. And we are given in the previous slide yung additional information that for the standard stanchions, there are how many orders? 600 orders. So all we have to do is we simply multiply 320 with 600 and we will get a product of 192. We will do the same then for your custom compass housing. Again, the activity rate that we have computed for the customer orders is how much? 320 per order. And then how many orders ang meron tayo for custom compass housing? 400 orders. So when you multiply 320 by 400, we will get 128,000. Now, if you will add 192, you add that to 128, it will give us a total of 320, which is exactly the amount that you have allocated to the custom orders na activity cost pool. So, yung 320,000 at this step rather, step number 4, we are able to distribute further the 320. Paano natin na-distribute yon? From your activity cost pool na custom orders, we have further distributed it to standard stanchions as well as to your custom compass housing. So, yung 320 that you have accumulated sa anong cost pool? Customer orders. At this point, we have distributed that to your 2 products. What are your 2 products? Standard stanchions and custom compass housing. So, standard stanchions got 192 out of the 320, while the custom compass housing got 128 out of the 320. The rest, itong product design, order size, will follow the same process on how we distributed custom orders to the two different products. Now, let's illustrate another example ng inyong second stage allocation. This time, let's assign activity cost to your customers. So, we have here the data needed by Classic Brass to assign overhead costs to one of its customers. So, you have the following additional information for one customer. Sino yan? Si Windward Yachts. So, kindly go over na lang yung additional information. Exhibit 7-10 shows how the ABC system assigns overhead costs to your customer. So as we can see in this particular exhibit, the ABC team calculated magkano yung overall na nakalculate niya 6,423 of overhead costs that should be assigned to this particular customer. Anong breakdown nitong 6,423? Now, how many orders ang na-place ng customer na to? Tatlong orders. Kasi nandiyan, no? The company placed, if you try to recall yung previous slide, the company placed a total of 3 orders. So, magkano yung activity rate natin per order? 320. So, 320, multiply mo lang ng 3 activities. So, the total assigned cost from customer orders will be 960. And then, for your product design, magkano yung cost natin per product design? 630. And how many design ang meron tayo? Isa lang. So, 1 design times 630, you have a total of 630. Order size natin is magkano yung ating activity rate. Yung activity rate natin is $19. $19 per ano? Per machine hours. And then, how many machine hours ang nagamit mo para ma-fulfill yung tatlong orders ni Windward? You were able to use how many machine hours? 177 machine hours. So, 177 multiply mo ng 19, ang total niyan is 3,363. And then, for customer relations, isang customer lang naman itong si Windward. So, your activity is 1, and we have computed that your activity rate for customer relations is 1,470. So, your ABC cost for customer relations to be assigned to Windward will be 1,470. Then, you just simply add those 4 activity cost pools. So 960 plus 630 plus 3,363 plus 1,470. We will get your total overhead cost of how much? 6,423. Now, with your second stage allocations complete, your ABC design team is now ready to turn its attention to creating reports that would help explain the company's first ever net operating loss. Now, that brings us to step number 5, and that is to prepare management reports. The most common management reports prepared with ABC data are product and customer profitability reports. These reports help companies channel their resources to their most profitable growth opportunities, while at the same time highlighting products and customers that drain profits. Now, we begin by illustrating a product profitability report followed by a customer profitability report. The Classic Brass ABC team realized that the profit from a product, also called your profit margin, is a function of the product sales and the direct and indirect costs that the product causes. Now, your ABC cost allocations, as shown in Exhibit 7-9, only summarize each product's indirect costs. Therefore, to compute a product's profit or your product margin, the design team needed to gather each product's sales and direct costs in addition to the overhead costs previously computed. Now, your pertinent sales and and direct cost data for each product are shown dito sa slide na to. So, you have sales and direct cost given for standard stanchions as well as for your custom compass housings. Notice that the numbers in your total column agree with the income statement na makita natin dun sa Exhibit 7-2. So, after you have gathered yung inyong products, sales, as well as yung kanyang direct cost, yung second step in the computation of your product margin is to incorporate the previously computed activity-based cost assignments pertaining to each product. So, we can see here in Exhibit 7-11, your report revealed that your standard stanchions are profitable with a positive product margin of 906,250, whereas yung inyong custom compass housings are unprofitable with a negative product margin of 49,500. Now, if you notice, we did not include yung cost ng inyong customer relations and other activity cost pools simply because yung inyong customer relations, those are costs that are caused by customers, again, and not by your products. Tapos yun namang inyong others, yung cost naman nila are organization sustaining costs and unused capacity costs that are not caused by any particular product. So, ano lang ang sinama natin in your cost here to compute for your product margin, yung mga costs directly traceable to your product as well as the indirect costs that you have allocated to the product. So, DM, DL, shipping are direct cost to individual products while customer orders, product design, and order size, ito yung mga overhead costs that we assign to products earlier. So we can see here in Exhibit 7-11, yun nga, si standard stanchion is profitable while yung custom compass housing ninyo gave us a negative profit margin. Your product margins can be reconciled with your company's net operating loss as follows. So, makita natin na yung product margins na total ninyo, magkano yan? Nag-net kayo ng 856,750 kasi nga negative yung custom compass housings. And then saan na, and then dito, makita na natin yung dalawang activity cost pool na hindi natin sinama earlier. Ano yun sila? Customer relations as well as yung others. Nasaan column sila? Nasa total column. Bakit sila nasa total column? Kasi nga hindi sila attributable to any particular product. So ngayon, we are able to reconcile yung product margin ninyo with the company's net operating loss of how much? 1,250. The next thing that you do, kasi meron ka ng product margin report, let's create a customer profitability report for one customer. So let's have Winward again as an example. Now, similar to the product profitability report, you need to gather data concerning sales to Winward as well as yung kanyang direct materials, direct labor, and shipping costs associated with those sales. Now, let's say for example, itong data under Winward, ito yung mga nag-gather mo na information. Sales mo amounted to how much? 11,350. And then you have the following direct cost, DM of 2,123, direct labor of 1,900, as well as shipping cost of $205. Now, using yung inyong recently gathered data, yung sales as well as direct costs ni Winward, and yung data that you have in Exhibit 7-10, you can now create your customer profitability report as we can see here in Exhibit 7-12. Now, if you will C, yung report ninyo, anong pinakita niya? Yung customer margin for Winward is magkano? 699. How did we arrive with your customer margin? So from your sales, we just simply deducted DM, DL, shipping costs, yung customer orders, particularly for Winward lang, and then yung product design for Winward, order size, and customer relations. That gave us a customer margin na positive of 699. Now, itong report na to, you can make a similar report for your other customers. So, ito isa lang ha, for Winward lang. So, if you have 250 customers, you can prepare exactly the same report for the other 249 customers. Para saan yon? So that you can cultivate good relationships with your most profitable customers while at the same time taking steps to reduce the negative impact of unprofitable customers. So, as a summary of those 5 steps, makita natin dito sa Exhibit 7-8 yung activity-based costing model at classic brass.